much.
Okay. Well, hello. We have a good group of us today, and I'm sure that the title piqued everyone's curiosity, right? Everyone is the hero of her own journey. We have heard the word hero probably more in the past year and a half than we have in our whole life, right? With the COVID, we've heard frontline heroes. And then just recently with the 20th anniversary of 9/11, we've heard about the 9/11 heroes. So the word has been in our culture and our community forever, but it's really peaked this just recently. Everybody agree, right? Um, and so the challenge today is for us to think about ourselves as our own heroes of our own journey, because it's really up to us to create the life that we want. So that's going to be the challenge. And I'm going to walk you through a couple different ideas. First, in classical mythology, right? That was when a hero was a demigod or a king or queen or a chief, right? They had like this godlike prowess. What I want to point out to you is in dictionary.com, the basic definition of a hero is a person noted for courageous acts or nobility of character. And my challenge for all of us is to recognize that every day it takes us courage to make good choices, to make choices that move us forward. And that takes courage. Because what do we want in life, ladies? What do different people want? I've asked this question and I get a variety of different answers. But most of the time, it comes down to we want good health. We want to love other people, to feel the love of others. We want a sense of peace. We want joy. We want to live joyfully. And we want success. And we want to live comfortably. So while that's easy to say, right? It's easy to say what we want. Everybody agree? um, it and this is the common misconception, like, oh, I want to, find love. I want to find a new job, right? Oh, great idea. We'll go from A to B. And a lot of times with social media, it can look like people did that. I remember just recently reading Kevin Hart's book. He's so funny. His title is actually "You Can't Make This SHIT Up." It's a riot. It's a funny book, but he very clearly says people used to have recently been coming up to him saying, "Wow, you're like an overnight success. You just came out of nowhere and you're hitting on all accounts. Like that's phenomenal." And he's like, "No, no, 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 no. Back up, right? I did not go from, you know, Kevin Hart to big time comedian, boom, from A to B like that. No, it was much more like this." And he goes through the different chapters and lessons he learned in the course of his life. And it's just a really fun, entertaining book, but it really hits the nail on the head about what we want to talk about today. Because back in, so has anybody heard of the hero's journey? It's actually a specific Joseph Campbell, who was an author and intrigued by mythology. He made up this phrase, the hero's journey. And he made it because it's based on the fact that most myths and stories have a similar framework. And it's about how the heroes go from, point A to point B, but not in a straight line. They go through it on a curve. And we can think about different movies. Does anybody have a movie that comes to mind that they want to shout out, that they can think about where there's been a hero? Like I can think of like in, Finding Nemo or Soul Surfer. Has anybody seen Soul Surfer with Bethany? That's a true story about this young girl who gets her arm bit off by a shark and how she has to dig deep and come out and figure out how to move on with the rest of her life, right? um, Nemo, his dad, is really scared at the beginning. He works through things, right? The Blind Side with Sandra Bullock. So every different movies. Can anybody else think of an example? The Hunger Games, look at what Katniss does, right?
Feel free to use the chat, ladies, too. If you don't want to unmute yourself, feel free to use the chat and I can supervise it for Amy.
Awesome. Thanks, Lorraine. So when we look at our life like this versus this, right, which is also, as we said, um, much more seen out there on social media now, right? You just see the Christmas card phenomena. You see all the happy things, right? When we look at it like this, what happens is we come to understand that it is normal for everyone, and in fact, everyone does go through all these different stages. In fact, they go through all these different stages over and over and over, right? Because life is a journey of continual learning. And what we need to remind ourselves and other people is that we're looking to continually leap forward. And that is where the heroicness comes into play. Because as we're leaping forward, we're leaping into the unknown, and that takes courage. So let's go back here, for example. Here at Dress for Success, we talk about changing jobs or finding new work, right? So you may be moving along one day and you feel like you have, life is going fine. You like your job. Maybe you get fired from your job. So you like your job, you're moving along, right? Maybe you don't like your job. And all of a sudden you have a calling. We're going to go through the different stages. You have a calling. Maybe you don't like your job. I used to be a business analyst. Okay. It just didn't work for me. My family used to make fun of me because those are two words they would never use to describe me, a business analyst, right? I had this calling and I realized I don't like what I do. And the people around me are all really great and interesting. And the people who like it, it's working well for them. But the people who don't, I, I don't, they're stuck. I don't want to be like that. So, maybe you're in a position where, my brother-in-law just recently, he got fired. That's a definite calling. Now you have to change. Now you have to do something, right? Or maybe it's as subtle as how I felt. I didn't like my job. Maybe other people feel underemployed, right? That's what we do here at Dress for Success too. We help you get different type of employment. And so what happens is you have this calling and you want to move forward. So you think, great, I'm going to get a job I like, or I just got fired, I'm going to find a new job. And you start out quite confidently, right? Can we all relate to that? You feel like, oh, yeah, great, I'm going to just change jobs, I'm going to figure it out. And you think, all right, I've got this. And then what happens? Oftentimes we hit a point of frustration. And I won't even say often, I'll say all the time. There's always brick walls that pop up in front of us. There's always bumps, right? There's things that happen. Not now, 99% of the time, people give up when they hit a brick wall. They think, you know what? I don't like this job, but it's too hard to find another one. I can't. I'm just going to stay. And they get stuck. And that's what happens. People get stuck in all different types of environments, right? Stuck in a marriage, stuck in a bad relationship, just stuck. This apartment is fine. I was going to move and look for another one, but this is fine. They get stuck. Um, what we need to do is understand that the point of frustration is a normal step in the process. It happens to everyone and it comes down to us. We need to have the courage to move forward and, like this photo shows, leap into the unknown. And we do that in different ways. We can do that by looking for a mentor. Again, at Dress for Success, we offer that. Whether it, specifically for jobs. So we'll keep it with that example. So we can look for a mentor, for somebody who's in that field that we want to go into. When I decided I wasn't going to be a business analyst, I started talking to someone who worked at the company I was at, who was in human resources. And she introduced me to somebody who was a career counselor. And I thought, that's what I want to do. So I started to talk to that woman and gather information about what I needed to do to become a career counselor, what kind of schooling I needed or experience. I asked her a lot about the field before I decided that is what I want to do. So we need to develop that mentor relationship, which is key, and that helps us move forward. And then, anybody have a question so far about any of these stages? Do you want to write it in, or I love to hear other people's voices too. Any other thoughts? Debbie, are you talking? Yes.
I will make an observation. I think this is so true. I'm an executive coach, so I do also counsel a lot of people who have been looking for a job in the past year. And what happens is exactly as you said, people are in a job for a certain amount of time, and then they get to a point where they feel stale and stagnant, but they're afraid to look because it is scary. The unknown is scary. And in the conversations that we have with them, it is, you can stay where you are and feel comfortable, even though you might be a little bored, or you have to push outside of your comfort zone to go to that next level or to go to a place where you want to be. So the being uncomfortable brings with it the possibility of doing something that is more desirable. But I think, like you say, some people aren't ready to tackle the unknown and the uncomfortableness of the unknown, because it might not work out right away. But then they're also frustrated with being bored with where they are or unhappy with where they are. So that uncomfortableness is necessary to go, and the courage is necessary to go to the next step. So I've totally seen that in what you just said.
Absolutely, Debbie. Thank you for confirming that. I think that's fantastic that you shared it, because again, um, it takes courage, and people think of heroes as people running into buildings that are on fire, or rescuing people, jumping in and rescuing people from drowning or something like that. But my challenge here today is for all of us to recognize that everyday living and creating the life we want takes courage. So we have to dig deep, and any change we want, we need to, to find that courage within ourselves to actually do that leaping forward and to go through these steps. So thank you, Debbie. Anybody else have thoughts? Okay.
Have Demetra asked in the chat, she asked if how can we sign up for a mentor? So I'm just asking anyone who's interested in getting a mentor, feel free to email me at Lorraine@DFS Northern NJ. I put my email right on the chat, and I can help partner you up with a volunteer that can mentor you. Or we can figure out, you know, a volunteer that's on your same field, like Amy mentioned, so that way you can have someone that can show you sort of like, the next steps for you in your career.
Excellent. Thanks, Lorraine. And when and it doesn't have to just be one person or the first person you meet. It could be somebody who you meet at Dress for Success who introduces you to somebody else. So that meant along with meeting a mentor comes networking and gathering information, because what we need to do is gather information about the move that we're looking to make, because when we gather information, we can make a better decision, right? Based on the information we have. Okay. So that brings us then to the crossing the threshold. So here's where we start to gain confidence based on the information we've gathered, based on who we've talked to. So, for example, the mentor that I had when I was looking to change jobs, change careers, her name was Jean. Jean introduced me to somebody at Baruch College in New York City. I started talking to them. I was able to get an internship there, volunteer, and start to gain experience while I had my full-time job. I did the night shift there in the career center. I started to understand what happened in that environment. I was looking to go from corporate to academia, which was quite different. So and I wanted to, before I made this move, I needed to make sure that I could make a decent amount of money where I could stay in my apartment, or would I have to step back? Would I, how do I gain experience while I'm still working? These are the questions you need to find out. But when you make that initial leap of commitment, like, okay, I made that commitment to myself. I said, this is going to be a transition that I don't know what it's going to fully entail, but I'm going to find out because I've recognized that I am unhappy enough where I need to change. And that's what you need to, that goes back to what Debbie was saying. You need to recognize, or you know what? I have a friend of mine. She can't change jobs right now. She needs to stay where she is because she needs the stability of that income because of her kids' education. So she needs to stay there. But she knows, okay, in 5 years, I'm going to figure it out. So I have 5 years to mentor and gather information about something else I want to do because I am going to definitely need to change after that. Right? Do you understand how that you break down? Okay. So that's when you start to make the initial leap. Then when that happens, you also come up against different tests, right? We can all, I mean, I had somebody say to me, like, why would you go from being a business analyst to a career counselor? Like, that's ridiculous. You're going to make half the money. And, people kind of test you on what your values are. People challenge you, like, oh, well, you don't have a background in that, so you won't be able to do that. So you have to learn how to come up against the tests and strategize and not be intimidated again, because at any point you can fall back to that point of frustration. That point of frustration, you can say, oh, now it's hit here, forget it, right? And then what you want to do is you go through and you, let's see, I am on the next phase, inmost cave, right? So number 6 leads us to different resources, right? Professional resources, different coaches, mentors, family members. They might give us a hard time. Then you come up against the fight against the hero's block. So right here, number 7, you're almost up, right? You're almost coming out of it. And then what often happens to us? That voice inside of us, that critical voice says, what are you thinking, Amy? Right? Or like, hey, Christine, what are you thinking? Debbie, what's going on? Right? And it kind of causes you to doubt yourself. And so this is when you need to go off on your own and say, I'm going to go into my little cave here and I'm going to write it all out. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to take the time to confirm that I can do this. I've gotten the resources around me. I can do this, right? So you're building up. Then you hit this ordeal and you draw upon all your skills. Once you hit that ordeal and you think, okay, I've worked really hard for this. I'm going to work through it. I'm going to get to the next step. And you ultimately overcome that challenge of that inner critic saying to you, yeah, it's just easier to stay where you are, right? You're going to overcome that inner critic. And so then what starts to happen? You have a breakthrough. You have this sense of, oh my gosh, now for example, I had an internship at Baruch College. They asked me then to work for them, a couple times on the weekend. So I started to get paid work, right? You start to all of a sudden say, okay, well, this is working. Then I got introduced to someone at NYU and I started getting paid there. And then I started going back for my master's in counseling. It's a lot, right? I had to figure out how to pay for that. You have to figure this all out, but you break it down into smaller steps. It's never just A to B, boom. It's a lot of small steps, and you have to celebrate each triumph along the way. So celebrate the fact that you got your resume together, that you found a mentor, that you got an interview. Maybe you didn't get the job, but you got an interview. It's a learning spot. It's a learning curve, right? Then you got a call back. You got another interview, right? You have to celebrate every triumph and notice the small steps that you're taking to get to your ultimate goal, right? And that goal, then you feel you have this reward. You're back to your road back to life is like per normal, so to speak. You're like, okay, now I've got this new job. I'm good again, right? And you need to take the time to celebrate that, right? You need to, whether you go out with a couple of girlfriends, light a candle and have a glass of wine on your own, you make a phone call to your grandma in another state, whatever it is, you say, hey, I did it. And you celebrate, you allow yourself. I think as adults, sometimes we tend to forget the stage. It's like, boom, okay, done. Now we go on to the next step. No, take the time and celebrate. Look back. My daughter, we were skiing years ago, and I accidentally ended up on a black diamond with them. And so my one daughter went down the hill. It was not a hill. It was like mogul crazy mountain. She went down ahead of me, and my other one daughter stayed behind me. And they're like, "Okay, mom, you got this." I went down really slowly. I made it down this really steep section. I finally got down to my older daughter who was waiting, and my younger daughter caught up. And I said, "Oh," I said, "Okay, well, you guys can go on. Like, I'm gonna go back to the lodge and like just take a break." And my older daughter said, "Hey, mom, look behind you. Look back up what you just came down." And I was like, "Oh." And I looked back up and I thought, "Holy cow, I just came down that, right? I made it down alive. I wasn't very graceful, but I didn't get hurt, right?" And so she said, "Yeah, you just did that." And I said, "Great. Well, been there, done that. Don't need to do that again." But all right, hooray for me. I had the courage to get down, right? So that's what we need to do. I mean, she said that, and I thought, what a phenomenal reminder for all of us to say, wow, 2 years ago, I was a business analyst, and now I'm a career counselor. It took time, but I did it. And look at all the things I had to do, all the different steps I had to take to get here. And remember to celebrate, because you know what'll happen is all of a sudden, boom, the next thing happens, right? And we restart the process. So people who say, "Oh, I'm going to have kids when everything's all settled," or "I'm going to start a family when I've got enough money," or I'm going to change jobs, when I'm healthy, or I feel like whatever." No, life keeps going, right? We know that, ladies. Life keeps going. And so celebrate when you feel that, woohoo, because the next day, the next month, the next year, something else is going to come out of the blue. You're going to have to help. My dad has Alzheimer's, right? So that's a big challenge for us now. We're learning those curves, right? So you're always on this journey. That's the point. And it takes courage, right? So I shared with you that my personal motto is celebrate every triumph. Look back over your shoulder, notice what you've accomplished, because again, it takes a lot of courage. I also want to share with you the 2 key takeaways from this. Um, I want to say, first of all, the results come from taking consistent small steps. So break it down. You have an overall goal. Like people say, "Oh, I want to lose 15 pounds." That's easy to say, right? That goes back up to here. But there's this misconception because there's all these steps along the way to lose 15 pounds, right? So you have to take it day by day. I'm going to walk for a half an hour today. I'm going to lift weights tomorrow. I'm not going to eat the cookie. I'm going to eat pretzel. I'm not going to eat 5 cookies. I'm going to eat 1, right? We have to eat cookies. I'm like, we got to eat cookies. So the first takeaway is life ebbs and flows. We have to take consistent steps forward, right? And then the next takeaway is that this leaping here shown is what we can learn. That's teachable. It takes courage. It takes mentors. It takes members of our family and true friends to continue to encourage us to move forward. So we have to pay attention to who we're surrounding ourselves with, right? Because we want to continue to move forward. And this is the quote that I wanted to read to you from Brene Brown. She's an author. She says, "Everyone who's courageous is vulnerable, and we're both courageous and vulnerable as we leap. But that's how we keep growing in positive ways." Right? So that's the way I want to end. I often encourage at the end of webinars and during this empowerment series, I'm going to always encourage everyone to take some type of sticky note. And on the sticky note, write a takeaway. We are our own heroes. Keep moving forward one step at a time. A simple phrase that will help you remember this lesson. And then stick it up on your mirror so you wake up in the morning. It could be as simple as stay courageous, right? Put it on your dashboard of your car, on your refrigerator, wherever you're going to see it, because we all need reminders to keep moving forward. Because again, that inner critic and that outside world sometimes encourages us to stay stuck. And we all have personal qualities, gifts, talents, different types of personal characteristics that we've been given to use for a specific reason. And I was doing a seminar on Saturday, and there was a gentleman there who's a doorman in New York City, and he said, when he introduced himself, he said, I look to light up everybody's day. And you could tell that was his personality. He loved what he did. So he used those special gifts and characteristics that he's been given to make a positive impact on other people. And that's really what heroes look to do. Use the gifts they've been given to make to create the life that they want and to make a positive impact on other people. So that's the summary for today. Those are the key points. I am happy to take anybody's questions. I know I want to be very cognizant of